Sergeant John Ripper Reese had been crushing alien skulls for days, knowing that when the alien pirates discovered they had been slaughtering humans, revenge would be swift and brutal. As a member of the elite galactic peacekeepers, an interspecies task force to combat space piracy, in the lawless regions of the Alliance of Seven Worlds, Reese's reputation for ruthless kills preceded him. But Commander Zaxos, a reptilian Throlian in charge of their mission briefing, underestimated both Reese and the pirate threat. Zaxos informed them a pirate king was raiding a vital trade route. When Reese raised concerns of a trap, Zaxos dismissed it, foolishly believing the pirates were too stupid for such tactics. But Reese knew pirates were crafty bastards, and there was no pirate more ruthless than a human pirate. If they didn't stop this pirate king now, the unprotected trade route would allow him to grow his fleet, plunder with impunity, and butcher the billions of innocents in surrounding star systems. The pirates had to be stopped here and now. But first, Reese needed to ensure his alien squad mates survived long enough to complete the mission. He checked his plasma rifle's charge and prepared his mind for the slaughter to come. The Peacekeeper fleet dropped out of warp right on top of the trade route. Reese scanned the surrounding space from his seat in the dropship. He didn't see any ships yet, but he noticed some strange readings from the asteroids up ahead. "Oh, Zax, those space rocks look sus as hell," Reese said over the comms. "My gut's telling me this smells like an ambush." Zaxos snorted dismissively. "Your paranoia is noted, Sergeant, but I assure you these pirates are far too dim-witted for such—" Suddenly, dozens of pirate ships emerged from their hiding spots behind the asteroids, catching the peacekeepers completely off guard. Reese swore under his breath as energy blasts started hammering their fleet. "Evasive maneuvers," Zaxos shouted, finally getting with the program. "All fighters, engage the enemy." Too late, though. The pirates had the drop on them, and within seconds, several peacekeeper ships were already exploding into flaming wrecks. They were outnumbered at least 3-1. Reese punched the thrusters and dove straight at the nearest pirate cruiser. "Shit, we need to take out as many as we can before we bug out. Draw their fire away from the fleet." His balls-to-the-wall attack run caught the pirates by surprise. Reese jinked and juked, narrowly dodging the storm of plasma bolts filling space around his tiny ship. He squeezed the trigger and held it down, hosing the cruiser with searing blue energy beams until its shields failed and explosions started ripping across its hull. 2 more pirate ships broke off to chase him, but Reese pulled a Psycho Ivan maneuver, cutting thrust and flipping his ship backwards to face them as they overshot him. His targeting computer screamed a missile lock, and he thumbed the launch button, sending a volley of plasma-yield rockets up their tailpipes. Both ships vanished in blinding white fireballs, but Reese was already wheeling around, hunting for his next victim. He'd blown up 4 ships single-handedly before Zaxos' voice crackled over the comm again. "All peacekeepers, emergency recall. Get back to the carrier for immediate withdrawal." Reese cursed. They were retreating already. He'd only just gotten started. But orders were orders. He disengaged and punched his afterburners, rocketing back towards the rally point. Once landed, Reese vaulted out of his cockpit, only to find Zaxos standing there waiting for him, his saurian eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Those maneuvers you pulled out there, I've never seen flying like that before. No regular soldier could do what you just did. What are you, really?" Reese met his gaze coolly. "Just a guy doing his job, Commander, trying to make the galaxy a little safer." Meanwhile, on the bridge of his flagship, the notorious Pirate King Zorax watched a replay of the battle footage. He paused on an image of Reese's fighter, single-handedly shredding his ships. "Well, well, seems we have a real killer on our hands here, boys. A true artist of death and destruction." Zorax grinned savagely, baring his jagged metal teeth. "I want him. Find out who he is and bring him to me. I'm going to carve that man's skull into my personal drinking cup." The aftermath of the ambush hit Reese hard. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the peacekeepers who didn't make it back. Good soldiers, cut down in their prime because of that scaly bastard Zorax. Reese's hands tightened into fists. That pirate scum was going to pay. Reports started flooding in about Zorax's fleet, attacking Alliance outposts and colonies across 3 sectors. The Pirate King was leaving a trail of fire and blood in his wake. Civilian ships gone, trade depots vaporized, orbital habitats with thousands of innocents, raided, looted, and left as cracked open husks leaking atmosphere. The Peacekeeper command staff looked stressed as hell in the briefing room. "We have to stop Zorax now," Admiral Zorn said grimly, his red eye stalks bobbing with agitation. "Before this gets any worse, I'm assigning your unit to hunt him down. Terminate with extreme prejudice." Commander Zaxos snapped a salute. "We'll get it done, sir." Reese just grunted. Finally, a chance to take that metal-toothed freak out for good. He threw himself into mission prep with a singular focus, triple-checked his weapons and gear, ran combat sims until his eyes burned, barely ate or slept. Some of the other peacekeepers gave him a wide berth during those days. Even the 8-foot-tall Kahani trooper, Yaxvin, seemed unnerved by his intensity. Only Zaxos made an effort to reach him. "Are you doing all right there, Sergeant?" the reptilian officer asked one night in the armory. Reese glanced up from field stripping his plasma rifle. "I'm fine, sir, just ready to get this done." "Look, John, I know that ambush hit you hard. I see how driven you are." Reese scowled. "You know they're gunning for me, right? That Pirate King freak wants me, specifically." "I figured as much, given what you did to his fleet. But that's not what concerns me." Zaxos leaned in, lowering his voice. "We need you sharp and focused out there. I can't have you flying solo on some personal vendetta. We're a team." "And I intend to do my job, Commander. Taking out Zorax is good for the whole team." He slapped the rifle parts back together and chambered around. "You really want to help? Stop asking questions and just point me at the bad guys." Zaxos's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the sergeant's agitation on the air. "I get you're a private man, John, but whatever secrets you're holding back, they're eating at you. When the time comes for you to share that burden, you know where to find me." Without another word, the Throlian turned and left. Reese racked the charging handle on his rifle. He had no time for personal chit-chat. His mind was consumed by the hunt. Zorax's reign of terror ended now. He would make sure of it. The tip about Zorax's location seemed too good to be true. An abandoned space station in the ass end of nowhere, ripe for the taking, reeked like a fucking setup. Reese tried to warn Zaxos, but the commander was fixated on nailing that metal-toothed prick's scaly hide to the wall. He ordered the dropships to move in. They docked with the station, an ancient chunk of decaying metal spinning lazily against a backdrop of dying stars. As soon as the airlock hissed open, Reese knew they were fucked. Zorax's goons came boiling out of every corridor and access hatch like a goddamn flood, plasma rifles blazing. The peacekeepers returned fire, but there were too many. Reese saw Yaxvin take a bolt to the chest and go down hard, blue blood spraying. Zaxos caught one in the shoulder and fell back, snarling. "Fall back to the ships," the commander roared. No good. The pirates had them boxed in, cutting off their retreat. Reese ducked behind a cargo crate, heart pounding. This was about to turn into a fucking slaughter if he didn't do something fast. He keyed his comm. "Zax, I'm going to try and punch a hole through their line. When I give the signal, you get everyone back to the ships and haul ass out of here." The Throlian's voice crackled back, tight with pain. "Negative, Sergeant. We leave together or not at all." "God damn it, Zax. I'm the one Zorax wants. You get out while you can. That's a fucking order." Reese didn't wait for a response. He vaulted over the crate, rifle up and blasting. Pirates fell screaming as he charged straight into their ranks. The tight confines of the station worked to his advantage. Reese got in close where their numbers meant fuck all. He smashed the butt of his rifle into a Grak pirate's ugly mug, caving in its skull, grabbed a Zethian and snapped its spindly neck with one savage twist. Avith lunged at him, vibro knife humming. Reese sidestepped the thrust and pounded a fist into its eye stalks, bursting them like rotten grapes. He lost himself in the rhythm of close-quarters combat, falling back on instinct and muscle memory. When his rifle clicked empty, he snatched up a fallen pirate's sidearm and kept blasting. Blood and ichor splattered his armor as he carved a path of utter fucking destruction through Zorax's thugs. Behind him he heard Zaxos roaring for the peacekeepers to fall back. Good, they were getting out. Rhys hit his comm. "Zax, I'm going after Zorax. Get the others clear." "John, what the hell are you—" Rhys killed the channel. No time to explain. He had a pirate king to dethrone. He bulled his way into the station's command center, guns blazing. Alarms whooped, and warning lights flashed angry red. There, on the raised command dais, stood Zorax himself. The pirate king looked even uglier in person, all jagged metal teeth and vicious cybernetic implants. He sneered down at Rhys. A dozen elite guards fanned out before him. "So the human reveals himself at last," Zorax rasped. "Oh yes, I know what you are, little monkey. Did you really think you could hide your stench from me?" Rhys raised his blaster, teeth bared. "Fuck you, Metalmouth. You're done terrorizing the galaxy. It ends now." Zorax threw back his head and laughed, a hideous electronic gargle. "You really think you can stop me alone, human? I've heard the legends of your kind, a race of savages and brutes. But I see only a single mote of flesh and blood before me. What challenge could you possibly offer? Why don't you come down here and find out, you chrome-plated cocksucker?" Zorax snarled at that. "You wish to die on your feet, ape? So be it." He stabbed a clawed finger at Rhys. "Tear him apart." The guards rushed forward, energy blades igniting. Rhys met their charge head-on. What followed was a hurricane of violence and blood. Rhys moved like a force of nature, striking with the speed and ferocity only a human could manifest. He smashed bones, crushed windpipes, gouged out eyes. His own blood splashed hot across his face as their blades found flesh. But he ignored the searing pain, lost in the red place where only the killing mattered. In a matter of minutes, Zorax's guards lay in tattered ruin at his feet. Rhys stood panting amid the carnage, knuckles skinned raw and bloody. He fixed his glare on the pirate king and beckoned. "Let's dance, you son of a bitch." Zorax tried to hide it, but Rhys saw the fear in his beady eyes. The pirate leapt down from the dais, energy sword flashing to life in his claws. "I will drink wine from your hollowed-out skull," Zorax screeched. His arrogance now shot through with dread and desperation. He flew at Rhys, blade humming. What followed was a blur of violence. Zorax was fast, inhumanly so, his augmetics whirring as he slashed and thrust with his sword. But Rhys was faster. He ducked and dodged, snarling, letting the pirate king tire himself out. Zorax overextended on a lunge and Rhys struck. He slipped inside the pirate's guard and slammed an elbow into his throat, crushing his windpipe. As Zorax gagged and staggered, Rhys grabbed his sword arm and wrenched, snapping it like a rotten twig. The energy sword clattered to the deck and winked out. Zorax collapsed to his knees, gasping and gurgling. Rhys loomed over him, a bloody avatar of retribution. "You fucking monkey!" Zorax wheezed out. "Why won't you just die?" Rhys grabbed the pirate by his chrome jaw and stared into his eyes. "Because I'm human, you piece of shit, and we don't know when to quit." He tightened his grip and heaved with all his strength. Zorax's feeble screams cut off abruptly as Rhys ripped his jaw clean off, spraying the deck with oily black blood. The Pirate King's corpse toppled backwards. His reign of terror ended at last. Rhys stood there panting, Zorax's jaw still clutched in his fist. The fury drained out of him, leaving only bone-deep weariness behind. It was over. He'd done it. But fuck, what a mess. The clank of boots on deck plates snapped him back to reality. Rhys whirled, fists clenching, but it was Zaxos limping towards him, clutching his wounded shoulder. The Throlian stared wide-eyed at the aftermath of Rhys's one-man rampage. "Holy Mother of Var," Zaxos breathed out. "John, I've never seen anything like—" His words trailed off as his gaze settled on Rhys, a mix of awe and fear swimming in his slitted eyes. Rhys straightened, letting the pirate's jaw thunk to the floor. He met Zaxos's gaze steadily. "Yeah, Zax, it's like I said. I'm just a soldier doing his job. No. Zaxos shook his head. You're more than that. I see it now. The way you fight, the fury and skill. You're human, aren't you? Rhys shrugged, suddenly feeling the sting of his wounds, the ache in his muscles. Guilty as charged. Congrats. You're one of the few in the galaxy who knows our dirty little secret. Zaxos nodded slowly. John, I think we should talk. Really talk. The Alliance needs to know about this. About you and your people. Yeah, maybe. Rhys looked away out at the stars wheeling by in the viewport. But not now, all right? I'm tired, Zax, real tired, and I've got a fuck-ton of pirate blood to wash off. Of course, we'll debrief later. Zaxos stepped closer and gripped Rhys's armored shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're on our side, Sergeant. The Alliance needs more soldiers like you watching its back. Rhys just nodded, too spent to manage much else. He turned and walked away, leaving Zaxos to deal with the aftermath. He needed a minute, needed to process. Zorax was dead. The mission was over. But Rhys knew this was just the beginning. His secret was out now. Once the Alliance brass found out there was a whole species of humans running around the stars, his life was going to get a lot more complicated. But that was a problem for another day. Right now he just wanted a hot shower and a stiff fucking drink. He figured he'd earned that much at least. Rhys allowed himself a small, tired smile. Human, huh? Goddamn right he was. And the galaxy had better be ready, because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was stirring up trouble. And Rhys intended to cause his fair share, for the good of the Alliance and for the thrill of the fight. It was, after all, what he'd been made for. The news of Zorax's defeat spread like wildfire through the Alliance. Vids of the battle were plastered on every HoloNet feed, from the core worlds to the Outer Rim. And at the center of it all was Sergeant John Rhys, the human peacekeeper who had brought down the most notorious pirate king in a generation. Rhys found himself dragged in front of cameras and politicians, hailed as a hero of the Alliance. Senators and admirals lined up to shake his hand and sing his praises. He even got a fucking medal, some gaudy gold and crystal thing that he shoved in the back of his locker, first chance he got. Through it all, Rhys kept up his stoic facade, the unflappable soldier's mask. But inside he squirmed under all the attention. This hero shit wasn't him. He'd just been doing his job, same as any other peacekeeper. It was almost a relief when Zaxos pulled him aside after another interminable award ceremony. "Walk with me, John," the Throlian commander said, steering Rhys away from the glad-handing dignitaries. They ended up in a quiet observation deck, the curve of some nameless moon filling the viewport. Zaxos leaned against the railing, his dark eyes inscrutable. "So," he said after a long moment, "you're human." Rhys tensed. He'd known this conversation was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. "Yeah, that a problem?" No, of course not." Zaxos waved a clawed hand. "I'm just surprised. Humans are little more than a rumor out here, a myth, even. To find out that the Alliance's greatest hero is one of your kind, well, it raises questions." Rhys snorted. "I'm no hero, Zax, just a grunt with a job to do." "Bullshit." The Throlian pinned him with a look. "I saw you fight Zorax and his goons, John. I've never seen anything like it. The speed, the strength, the sheer fucking savagery. That's not just training. That's something else entirely." Rhys blew out a breath. "Fuck it, cards on the table time. You're right, it's in our genes, our blood. Humans, we're warriors, Zax, bred for battle. It's what we were made for." "I don't understand. If your people are so powerful, why hide? Why not take a place on the galactic stage?" Rhys laughed a short, bitter bark. "Because we're not ready. Humanity's past is soaked in blood, Zax. We fought each other endlessly, over every petty difference you can imagine. Religion, ideology, resources, you name it. It nearly destroyed us, more times than I can count." He shook his head. "We're trying to be better, to move past our violent nature, but it's a struggle every day. Me? I figured the best way to change was to lead by example. Join the peacekeepers, show that humans can work side by side with other species, build some fucking bridges for once instead of burning them." Zaxos was silent for a long moment, considering. Then he nodded slowly. I think I understand, and I respect what you're trying to do, John, more than you know. The Throlian straightened, squaring his shoulders. Your secret is safe with me. You have my word. And for what it's worth, you have my support as well. The peacekeepers are lucky to have you. Rhys blinked, a sudden tightness in his throat. Thanks, Zax, that means a lot. I mean it. You're a credit to your species, and if humans are half as capable as you've shown yourself to be, the Alliance will be in good hands when you do decide to reveal yourselves. Rhys managed a smile. One step at a time, Commander. For now, I'm content to keep kicking pirate ass and keeping the peace. It's what I signed on for, after all. Zaxos chuckled. And you do it exceptionally well, Sergeant. He straightened from the railing, his demeanor turning brisk. I believe we have a mission briefing to attend, something about Grax slavers causing trouble out near the Hibari sector. You ready to get back to work? Always, Rhys said, and meant it. As they strode from the observation deck, he felt a new sense of purpose settling over him. The fight against Zorax had been personal, driven by vengeance and old ghosts. But this, working to make the galaxy a little safer, a little brighter. That was a cause he could throw himself into, body and soul. His teammates were waiting for him in the briefing room. Yaxvin, his exoskeleton still mottled with blast burns. Kaishak, her fur bristling with anticipation. Jivo, his methane tank freshly polished. And a dozen others, all looking to him with newfound respect in their eyes. They knew what he was now, what he could do, and far from rejection or fear, he saw only acceptance in their faces, understanding, kinship. Rhys allowed himself a small, fierce grin as he took his seat. Yeah, this was where he belonged, secret or no secret, side by side with the brave, the determined, the defenders. It didn't matter that he was human. Out here, he was a peacekeeper. And there was a whole galaxy of trouble waiting for them. Pirates and slavers and warlords, scum of every race and creed, let them come. He'd be ready for them. They all would. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.